that politician or that sad scenario, and it doesn't work out the way we know God should work it out, it's important to keep in mind that God is continuously and invisibly working in this world. God remembers those who honor His name. If you look in verse 16, it goes to say, the first word then, that word then kind of turns from what was going on to then. And it says, then those who feared the Lord spoke to one another. What changed? What changed for this group of people? That's the thing that comes to me. What happened in the then time of this passage? You had a group of people that came to God shaking their fist at Him saying, you're doing this wrong. But then there was a group of people that changed. Then they began to get together and talk. They began to remember who God was. You can kind of imagine this group of people that comes to this figurative mountain to address God of their concerns. And as they're making their shouts and their insults to God, Malachi steps forward kind of as a representation of God and reminds them of the things they had done. And then there's a group of people that begin to remember that this is the God who brought them out of Egypt. This is the God who brought them out of exile. And so there begins to be kind of a separation. You have the group of people, the mass over here, that is so upset with God because He allows former governors and politicians and athletes to do what they want to do and get away with it. But then you have a group of people over here that remember the God they serve. And they're getting excited a little bit. They're remembering. They're maybe singing some choruses. And if you look at that verse 16, it says God's observing all this. And the then people, He takes out a book and He flips to page 145. And He begins to write down the names of the people who changed. That's what the then in this verse means. Names are so important. We all kind of really enjoy it when somebody remembers our name. I had a professor in seminary named Dr. Gregory, and he was kind of like the seminary, hero. And in my first class I had with him, the very first day, he had memorized the roll. And in fact, he had memorized the picture of each of us. Never met him before, went around and called us by name and asked us a few questions. Names are so important. Hopalong Cassidy is a series. It's a book series. I love Westerns. I love to read, and so because I like Westerns, I read the best, which is Louis L'Amour. He is the greatest Western writer we have. And so I read him. But Hopalong Cassidy is kind of this William Wallace type figure, where he is just a man's man. He shoots a little straighter than everyone else. His horse rides a little faster. And a lot of times Hopalong in this series will drift into these places where, maybe big ranchers are taking small ranches away. And he'll begin to help the little person out. But you never know it's Hopalong, or the people in the story don't. You do reading it, but the people in the story don't know that it's Hopalong Cassidy until at some point where everything seems to be lost. And it seems like nobody could fix this. And then all of a sudden Hopalong will say, I am Hopalong Cassidy. And then there's this hope that now you have attached with this great name. Names are really important. And God is telling us here that His name is important. That remembering His name, if we just think through some of the names we have for God, Redeemer, or Yahweh, or Emmanuel, that God with us. And then the names that we kind of use in our own language, that God is a loving God. He is a holy God. He is a just God and a sovereign God. I know life's busy. Whether you're 14 months old like Nora, or you're a Facebook junkie like several of y'all in here, life is busy. Life is extremely busy. Sam tells me all the time when I just say, Sam, I'm so busy. She said, so is everyone else. Life is busy. And the then people in this passage took the time to remember God's name. And in turn, He remembered theirs. God separates and claims those who serve Him. Verse 17 is a pretty cool verse. God says here that in verse 17, He uses this word, my own possession. Now that word is really special. We can't understand what it means in our context. Let me just kind of try and explain what that my own special possession means. See, a king or a ruler at this time would own everything. They would own all of us. They would own our books. They would own the food we have, the ground they would own everything. But with that came the fact that we also got to enjoy those things. They would own the land that we would plant and the cows that we had, but we would also own them as well. And so the special possession that a king had, it was a purse or a wallet. And inside of this purse or wallet, it would have coins or rubies or jewels. And that's what a king considered his own special possession. Because even though he owned everything else, everyone else got to partake in it. But his own special possession, this purse of coins, he could take that out and he could hold those and he could count those. And no one else got to enjoy those but the king. That's what God calls the then people here. He calls the people that remembered His name my own special possession. Essentially saying, I'm going to keep you, I'm going to hold you for mine. You're not going to be shared. Verse 18 is kind of the verse that we all look to and that we want to hear, that's justice. When he says, and so then you will again distinguish between the righteous and the unrighteous, between the ones who serve God and the ones who don't. That's the verse we all want to jump to, but we don't want to have to be the then people at times. When Sam and I were married several years ago, that first year in marriage, there was a lot of changes that occurred. One of those changes was the amount of time that I got to go hunting and fishing. And since then, that has, I think I own a bass boat. I don't recall. Sam keeps me so busy with Christmas lights and taking care of Nora. And that first year of marriage was wonderful, though, because I don't know if I was just a better liar or Sam was just gullible. I would go fishing all the time. In fact, she counted up in that first September we were married, I went fishing like 25 days out of the month. You know, I was really, as one friend told me, I was ruling the roost, doing what I wanted to do.